Hello everyone, March W13 here with another hotel review, and this week we find ourselves at the world famous Bellagio Hotel and Casino on the Las Vegas Strip, and we booked a king bed fountain view room. It's on the 9th floor in room 20 to be exact, in the Bellagio Tower, which is located just across from the Tutto Cafe off the casino floor. I believe that these rooms were relatively recently renovated, as in at some point in the last 5 years or so. And I'm sure there's a great deal to explore even in this relatively small room. So let's say we start our tour. So the first thing you may have noticed in the intro may have been this intricately tiled, what I assume to be marble floor. Just gorgeous. And right off this tiled entryway is the bathroom. And what a bathroom it is. I don't recall how these were laid out in the original incarnation of these fountain view rooms, but just check out this bathroom length shower. Now, there is no bathtub. That is perhaps conspicuously missing from this space, and I know that a lot of the Bellagio rooms, as I recall, had very opulent bathtubs, some of which may have been jetted, probably not in this tier of non-suite rooms. But what perhaps has replaced the bathtub is a much longer shower. I mean, just look at how long this is. You could run laps in this thing. Nothing special in terms of the shower head, or so it appears. There's no steam shower or anything like that, but you have Renovated bath products. And the controls are, given the spaciousness of the shower, quite a distance away from the water delivery system. Overall, I would say this is just a very clean and elegant design. What you would expect, I think, in general, in a renovated room in a flagship 4-star property. Beautiful countertops. Two basins. Again, the Renovated bath products, Bellagio branding. I wouldn't say these cups, these glasses are terribly clean, but they're not necessarily supposed to be. Lit vanity mirror, and presumably a brand new toilet with the latest sort of flow technology. One thing that was maintained through however many rounds of renovations over the years is this toilet side wall mounted telephone. Perhaps a safety mechanism of sorts, but I can't imagine anyone needing to actually make an outbound call to someone external from one of these landlines any longer. Moving on from the bathroom, let's check out the closet. Now this, I think, even though it's doesn't seem to be extremely well lit, and I don't see, I suppose the light is motion activated or something, and it must be kind of finicky about activating. There it is, I suppose. But this, you can tell, is probably the same space that it was prior to renovation, but perhaps some things were rearranged. I don't recall there being a wall-mounted safe, and as you can see, it has a very, very thin profile. I did open this very briefly moments ago when I walked into the room, and I tried to store a few things You can tell it's deep enough and tall enough to store things like laptops and iPads, but I'm not sure if, in my case, I would be able to store those kinds of things in addition to all of this camera and electronics gear. So that's perhaps something to keep in mind, but it looks nice. It has this little metal knocker, which is maybe a nice touch. Plenty of rack space. Again, if a lot of these rooms have a fairly cluttered floor because they have a sort of floor mounted safe and some other things here, but you get a lot of space in this closet. It could barely be considered sort of walk-in because you can walk in and close the door, but there are fairly high quality hangers, and they're quite numerous, and there are a couple of monogrammed. I mean, that is just so classic. Perhaps the most famous hotel on the Strip, and you have access to that branding in copious quantities here at in these Bellagio rooms. And you actually have a couple of bags for your laundry, for your refuse, and of course the obligatory iron and ironing board, which look relatively new. Now, entering the primary living space, if I recall correctly, the original decor of this room was perhaps a little bit darker, maybe a little more blue and a shade of blue that was a bit darker. And of course you can see here there's a lot of pastels, and it's almost like what's quite common these days is a kind of a postmodern take with some, I guess, accents that are maybe harken back to the early days maybe of the 20th century, but with just some very clean and modern touches. I don't know if that's a good description of this or not, but that's what we're going to go with. And we'll start with the bed, which I've not had the opportunity to enjoy yet. I don't know if these are different beds from those that have graced these Bellagio rooms in years past. I would point out the monogramming there, the branding, the Bellagio cursive B on that decorative pillow there. Looks like there's plenty of pillows and plenty of light, and on the headboard there, something that is evocative of the calmness of waves rolling in from the ocean onto a beach or something like that. I suppose it's subject to interpretation, but definitely very calming and very artistic. But is the bed comfortable? It definitely feels very pillow toppy. And underneath that pillow layer, you can feel is pretty firm. I would say on the firm side, maybe on a 7 on a scale of 0 to 10, where with 10 being extremely firm, but it's got that very plush pillow toppy layer on top. One of the things I would point out is that most of the storage space, if you're accustomed to having a lot of storage space in drawers, and I think we've seen a lot of relatively newly renovated rooms, or just brand new, net new hotels lately in these room tours and in my travels that have a lot of storage space. But one of the things you'll notice here is that they're in the sort of this central chest here that contains a lot of the amenities. There is practically no storage space. In fact, this cabinet here houses the mini bar, and you can see it is fully stocked with Tito's vodka, Bacardi rum, Veuve Clicquot champagne, which is always impressive. Kettle One vodka, so a lot of premium stuff. Got some whiskey in here, some beer and soft drinks, including some craft beer, water, Cabernet. Is this Maker's Mark? Yeah, Maker's Mark whiskey. Full bottle of that. I'm not sure what the prices are on here, but like most other things, you probably have to look it up on your phone. There's probably a barcode around here somewhere. But I like this. There isn't a lot of fluff, just very targeted, high-quality brands at your disposal. But you can tell all of these. I'm not sure about the ones on the door. It looks like those probably are as well, but certainly these here are in these sort of individual grooves that each have a weight sensor, and if you pick them up and you don't replace them within a certain amount of time, I don't know how long it would be, of course you get charged. And I'm sure the same can be said for what can only be described as more than a six-pack of Fiji water. That's actually quite impressive. I'm sure with the rampant inflation as of late, these Fiji waters probably cost well upwards of $5, $6, $7, $8 or beyond. But another signature of the Bellagio that appears to have been maintained post-renovation is these Bellagio branded snacks, which look pretty good. Dark chocolate almonds, smoked barbecue almonds, lots of different kinds of nuts of different flavors. And here's this rather sparse, if I'm being honest, amount of storage space here, drawer-wise at least. And on the side, you have ice bucket, sort of gold tinged with tongs to match, and again something in the pandemic and even post-pandemic age, something you don't always see, which is real glassware, including, whoa, almost took a chip out of that one, real wine glasses, which I think would be nice to enjoy with either a bottle from the minibar there or one that you acquired yourself, perhaps from a place like Italy, which is just down the street and has a wonderful, very extensive wine marketplace with lots of Italian varieties. Now, when I first walked in the room, the TV didn't seem terribly impressive, and who really watches TVs these days anyway? But for those who have a need to know, this is a Samsung. So, nice brand, and it does appear to be at least a 50-incher, I would say. So, I'm sure it is quite high fidelity. There is this kind of, I don't know, alligator skin or lizard skin type textured, I guess this would be considered a ottoman or foot table or whatever at the foot of the bed. And then on either side of the bed you have these, I don't know, Art Deco stylish maybe lamps, which actually are quite functional, provide a lot of light, and there are lights, recessed lights there above the headboard. So again, a lot of light here, and the biggest drawers, the most storage space in the whole room would be these guys right here on either side of the bed. So this might be a good place to store your unmentionables and other things that may not fit or belong in your safe. And then, of course, as we approach the window adjoining the bed is this sitting area, and this is where we encounter these colors both in the artwork here on the wall And in this kind of couch, which I sat in for about 30 seconds earlier, and it was, admittedly quite comfortable. But this color combination of like a turquoise or light blue or whatever it's called, and kind of gold, but kind of these pastel color combinations that are probably pretty popular these days, I assume. You see it a lot in hotels and in clothing and that kind of thing. And it is, again, maybe a bit post-modern in a certain sense, but it's certainly quite functional at the very least. And the table as well can support a lot of weight and a lot of space. So I think that, particularly as we'll see in a moment with this fountain view, which I'm sure is particularly striking at night. It's been a while since I've stayed in one of these rooms. Lounging here on this couch and with that backdrop behind you of the Eiffel Tower and the fountains, I'm sure would be a sight to behold. And then we have kind of another sitting area, but this one is a full table where you could dine. As you can see, there's a little barcode here. We're not going to look at the menu this time, but you can, if you'd like, you can probably scan this barcode here, or QR code rather. And if you do order traditional room service, which I think now requires you in this post-pandemic world to spend at least $100, they'd probably spread out a little white tablecloth here. And again, you could sit here on this little ottoman and or this kind of Asian almost styled chair that looks like it doesn't quite belong, and watch the fountains while you eat. And some more artwork on the wall that kind of matches that is built into the kind of the mural above the headboard. And one thing that I didn't really notice, but that was probably present on those side tables next to the bed, are these outlets. And of course, these days you would hope to have at least 2 standard electrical outlets and 2 kind of old style USBs, no USB-Cs. But let's check out the side table, and indeed we have the same mix of power outlets there. And one thing I forgot to mention, of course, there are some light switches here. I believe this controls maybe those recessed lights above the headboard, which they do. So there's one on each side there. And then we have the drapery controls, and I think there are a couple of them there in the entryway, but I'm going to use these on the bedside here to open the drapes. So let's do that now. And again, we're on the 9th floor, so not as high as perhaps you would want if you were trying to optimize your viewing experience here, but nonetheless a good enough view to be considered a fountain view. So again, even though we're not terribly high up, we have a really nice panorama here. Starting here on the left, you can see the other Bellagio tower plus Caesar's Palace, the classic Caesar's Palace, which I believe is now one of the, aside from the Flamingo that is across the street, the Caesar's Palace is probably one of the older properties here on the Strip. In fact, it was the first hotel that I ever stayed with with my family when we visited here. Must have been 30 years ago. And to the left of Flamingo, you have Harrah's and the Link, and then behind that, rising above the other low-rise buildings, is the Venetian and the Palazzo behind it. Now, of course, the star attraction here would be the fountain itself. You also see views of, I guess these would be called villas, but these are, of course, high roller or just very expensive little cottages here at the foot of the property. And you can see they have little patio areas and they have their own private pools. But it's like having a little manicured Beverly Hills style home, but in a 4-star Las Vegas hotel. Now, across the street, of course, are the very bizarre and so appropriately named bazaar shops that front the Bally's property, and then across the street is the Cromwell, which is, I guess, Caesar's boutique and perhaps most expensive property. The rooms are relatively small. And then you have the Paris, which I believe was built in maybe the late 1990s, if I recall correctly. And of course, the Eiffel Tower now lights up at night and sparkles like the real one does. As I recall, this particular Eiffel Tower is maybe 1/2 the height of the original in the Parisian original, and of course, I think the original plans called for a full-scale replica, but those plans were dashed because of the air traffic, like that Janet Airlines jet that probably is coming in from Area 51 that is landing at the airport. The McCarran Airport, which was recently renamed Harry Reid Airport for the late Nevada senator who died, I believe, earlier this year in 2022. And then you have Planet Hollywood and some other properties. And you can just see off to our right here that structure there, the tall tower, is the Cosmopolitan, and all of those rooms have a balcony with really nice views of this Lake Bellagio, site of the world famous fountains. And you can see where the lobby and the atrium are located, as well as some of the many Michelin star quality restaurants that line the lake here and provide fountainside viewing while you dine at night. Now, why is there a crane on the world famous Las Vegas Boulevard, and why is it moving and hanging there over the Lake Bellagio and the world famous fountains? Well, there, if you can see clearly, there is a platform being constructed, or I suppose has already been constructed, atop the lake. And it doesn't cover any of the fountain nozzles, which I think you can see are sort of closer to our vantage point. But the purpose of the platform here is that it will be part of the NFL draft, which will be taking place here, I believe, in a few weeks. It will be held in Las Vegas for the first time. Obviously, Las Vegas has tended to shy away from professional sports throughout most of its history because of the obvious, potentially nefarious connections to gambling. But obviously, in recent years, that moratorium has pretty much fallen apart with the arrival of several professional sports teams, including most recently the Las Vegas Raiders, which play just down the street, essentially, from here. And so the NFL draft will be coming here, and I don't believe that the primary draft festivities will be held here. It's just simply not large enough. I want to say that may be taking place down the street, maybe at the convention center or something like that. But I believe that the idea is that the athletes, the recently graduated athletes entering the draft, will be introduced and will walk across a red carpet here on this platform with the backdrop of the world famous fountains. And I'm hoping that this construction does not disrupt the fountains themselves, and I'm hoping we'll still be able to see them tonight. And if so, I will record a separate video of that. So if I had to give my overall initial thoughts on this room, I would say that the Bellagio remains the queen of 4-star Las Vegas Strip properties. It's certainly not the nicest, but it's functional. These rooms, they do the job. And with this recent renovation, although I can't say that I'm anything but mostly ambivalent about the stylistic elements of this latest renovation, but I do think that it added some modern touches and some nice amenities that I think have been showcased over the course of this tour. And you can't beat the view or the location. So if the price is right, and if you enjoy staying on this part of the Strip, I can definitely recommend a king bed with a fountain view and one of the largest showers in a room of this type on the Strip. So in closing, thank you again for joining me on this tour of a king bed room with fountain view on the 9th floor. It's room 20 at the Bellagio Hotel and Casino on the world famous Las Vegas Strip. And here's one last look at this view. If you stayed in this room or in this hotel, let me know how you enjoyed it. For the rest of you, hope to see you here. Until then, safe travels. Marshall B13 out.